guys, Pat here again from Rain Country Homestead. God is good all the time. And I'm out here today again playing with my new toy. This is a LT50 Super wood-mizer sawmill. And just been working out some of the bugs that have been in the mill. The mill only has, 90, well, it has 92 hours now, but when I bought it, it had 90.7. Today I'm working on the Debarker. Well, the problem with the Debarker is that when you would operate, this is the in-out motor here, when you'd operate this motor, this shaft would run back and forth, and the Debarker motor would not, swing back and forth, and so it was very stiff. Right now I have it propped up just a little bit, but and it's actually operating a little bit freer now than it was. So right here is the Debarker mount, and there is a smooth machined shaft that runs down into here, and then there's a bolt that bolts to the bottom of this. Well, this is really stiff, and like I say, I have this lifted up about 3/4 of an inch so far, and it took quite a bit of effort to do that. And I'll show you what I did. I'm not making any admittance to this is what you should do, but it's working for me. And you got to be really careful about some of this stuff, because you can tweak it, you can bend things, you can knock things out of alignment. It's a pretty robust saw, but everything has its limit. I just want to caution you on, any of my videos that you watch, take it with a grain of salt. Do it a little differently, that's fine. Hopefully some of the things that I show you will spur you into give you some ideas on what you can do to make things happen. Well, the first thing I did is I took out these 4 bolts right here, 9/16 heads on them, and the other side has a nylock nut on the back side. So I pulled those, thinking that I could just work this down, take this off, and clean it up. Well, I took a block of wood and a mallet and went ahead and tied this into place. I had it tethered on the front, supported under here, and also supported the whole Debarker motor and blade on 2 blocks right on the frame of the mill. So it was nice and sturdy. And I just lowered the saw just enough just to take tension off of this and to support it. And then I took a broken ratchet strap and just kind of tethered it onto the head saw so it wouldn't fall over one way or the other. So after I kind of secured everything, I came back over on this side and I took these 4 bolts out, removed those 4 bolts, and I thought I could just work this mount mechanism down, and I wasn't able to do that. I wasn't able to pry this. I wasn't able to take a mallet and a block and tap it down. Nothing was working for me. The next thing I tried to do is just take the motor, and of course with the key off, no power running to it. I try to work this back and forth by trying to lift it up and just kind of working it back and forth on that pivot point to try to lift it out of that pivot point, and that wasn't really working efficiently for me. There's a lot of weight there, and it just didn't want to come up. So the other thing I tried to do is get up in here and pry, and then work that pivot point back and forth to try to work that up, and that didn't seem to help me either. What I resorted to do, and this is working, but again, a guy's always taking a little bit of a chance of bending something or knocking something out of alignment, so to each his own. I went over to the controls after I got everything propped up. I got these blocks in place, and then I lowered the head just enough to where it would take tension off of this. And then I moved this back and forth the best I could, and just kept lowering the head just a tiny bit. Lowered the saw and everything just a little bit at a time. Just kept working that back and forth. And with the help of having just a little bit more tension on this, I was able to get up underneath here and work this back and forth. And see how it's starting to come up now. Just keep putting more boards underneath here to protect the paint the best I can. And with each little bit more lift I get, then I have to put another block underneath here so I can get more purchase and more prying power at the end of my pry bar. And also to displace the weight on this. This piece right here is pretty thick channel iron, so I'm not worried about bending that, but I don't want to scratch it if I can get away with it. So here I'm grabbing a hold, moving this back and forth, just bringing that up. Now with all this slack underneath here, I'm going to lower the saw another 3/4 of an inch, 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch. Now again, I have the motor all tied up to where it can't fall over, but I got it to where I can pop that out of there by lowering that head just a little bit at a time, working this out. It's getting easier and easier now that there's not as much biting in there and holding on. So it looks to me the shaft in here and everything is going to be a little bit too high. I don't like the look of the way the spring rod here is. There's starting to get some lift here. It's starting to come under some tension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 bolts out here off of this bracket, take the tension off of this. So to get to those bolts, I have to take the wheel cover off of here. And those are the same size bolts as this one, and the same size bolts as the mounting bracket, which is back in here. 9/16. Just takes a few minutes to take this off of here. I'd rather take this off than risk bending that spring rod. Okay, so now I lost my tie-off point with this. I have to find another place to tie off to, so my motor doesn't fall over when I take this out. Now that I have the whole assembly, the arm assembly up, I'll go back to my original idea, and that is to remove these 4 bolts on the mount. And I should have enough slack in that mount now to where I can pull that mount off of there. I really don't want to lift all that weight off of the mount here and booger up the end of that machined portion. So we're going to go ahead and take care of, I just have 2 bolts holding that on right now. Well, no wonder it doesn't run freely. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'll see if I can get the light to shine in that cylinder a little bit. See how rough that is? Well, there's some rust pitting in there just by the lack of use and not being greased. So I am going to do my best to clean that up. Okay guys, now I got you in the shop here, and I've come up with an idea. I looked all over the shop and figured out the best way to clean this up. And so what we have going on here, I got a little bit of solvent. I washed this out with this little brush, cleaned all the old grease out of the inside of this, what grease was in it. And so now I'm just kind of cleaning it up a little bit. The other thing I'll do is maybe disassemble this too, at least to the point where it's I can get some fresh grease in it. I have this brush that I'll use, just a wire brush, and then I have this adapter, this Irwin adapter. It just it's kind of a, it's not really designed for this, but it'll actually hold it good enough to where I can hone the inside of this a little bit and possibly clean out all the rough edges in here. And then I might take some 600 grit sandpaper and figure out a way to wrap it around the end of this and kind of hone it just a little bit, just to take off any burrs that might be in there. And I'll remove that grease fitting. That's 3/16 by the way. Now holding this up to the light, you can see where the shiny part down there is the part that's not really affected as much as this is the top part. So this has been sitting like this for years, and moisture has gotten in there and has made that rough and has caused rust to build, and the pitting and whatnot has basically seized up that cylinder that runs down the inside of this the Debarker mount itself. So I need to maybe hone this a little bit, maybe just run a piece of 600 grit sandpaper around in there with some solvent and give that a try. Wet dry 600 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to wrap it around. It's going clockwise. I want to wrap this way. Double check the grease fitting and make sure it still works. It's not plugged. Okay, it holds on well. There we go. Take out the old grease. That looks a lot cleaner. And I don't see any protrusions coming out in there, any pits that are actually going to cause us trouble. Look at that. We don't have to pry or bang or beat or try to persuade that hydraulically or anything like that. It just slides right up in there like it's supposed to. You didn't see me taking this off earlier, but that's just a big retainer washer and a lock nut or lock washer, split washer. I'm going to put a light coat of grease on the inside of this and on this shaft. A little grease on that. So making sure that all points of this, you know, everywhere has a coat of grease, so it will help prohibit any moisture from getting contact on bare metal and causing rust problem. I don't know if you can see any of that pitting right there, but I don't think that'll be an issue. Now it'll be a place where grease can hold up, because I'm going to grease the inside of that real well. Okay, that's coated real well inside there. It looks like when I had that press and I pulled that mount off of there, I may have boogered up a thread inside the shaft here. So what I need is I need to get a tap that size. There it is. 3/8 with the thread count of 16. So now I know what size this is. I can go to a tap, which is clean out the hole in this shaft here. We're about ready to assemble this thing. Okay, here we go. Well, that turns a little bit better than it did before. I'm just tickled with that. Now we have the 4 bolts here. I'm going to go ahead and clean these up and put a little anti-seize on those. So if we ever have to take that apart again, it won't be all rusted up and corroded. And the threads were a little bit galled on that one, so I'm glad I cleaned that up. A little bit of anti-seize on there. Okay, now I have to lift up the head, because I have the mount all the way back up onto the whole assembly. So now I have to raise the head up to adjust the height to match up to these bolts. Okay, we have all the bolts in place and secure and tight. Now I'm going to go ahead and pump just a tiny bit more grease in that zerk, because that zerk was dry, and so I don't want any rust being built up in that grease fitting. I can see the grease starting to come out on each end, and so that's plenty. So I just pushed the old grease out of this existing fitting. See the old brown grease and moisture. So I'll clean this up. Both fittings are full of fresh grease. Now what this thing is a travel lock. And you disengage it when you're running the mill. This little stud or post goes into one of those 3 detents for traveling. Looks like there should be a washer on there, so I just went ahead and put one on. Whole mill might fall apart because I not following instructions, but anyway. Oh, just like it's supposed to. I am excited about that. I would say that was a success. It took me part of the day to get it done, but we got it. Didn't cost me anything but time, a little bit of grease, a little bit of solvent, and a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Take care, and God bless.